Good morning. This interview is being recorded on Saturday, May 30th, 2015 at the Iowa Veterans Home in Marshalltown, Iowa. It's being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. My name is Patty Ziegler, and I will be the interviewer. Here is Lynn Gordon. She is the court reporter who will transcribe the interview, and Amy Cooper, who is the videographer, and she is video recording the interview. Would you please just state the following for the recording? Your name.
Leslie Graham.
You want to spell your last? Well, why don't you spell first?
Graham.
And first?
Like in crackers.
Yeah, like in crackers. And how about Leslie? We spell that?
Leslie.
Thank you, Leslie. What is your date of birth?
7/9/25.
And your branch of the service?
Infantry Army.
Okay. The highest rank you achieved?
Didn't hear you.
Pardon me?
You have to speak up. I'm hard of hearing.
Okay. What is the highest rank that you received while serving?
T5.
D5?
I went through the whole war as a PFC because we had 9 non-coms back in the hospital for every position open in the division, so they froze all battlefield commissions. So I didn't get any. I should have been a sergeant, but they froze the promotions on the battlefield.
I see. Okay.
So they were lucky they just gave me a T5 before they discharged me.
Okay, a T5, all right. And what war that you served in?
World War II.
Very good. We really appreciate your visiting with us this morning, Leslie. Let's start out by just going back, and would you tell us where you were born and a little bit about your family, your mom and dad, your brothers and sisters? Are you from Iowa?
No, I was born in Rothsay, Minnesota.
Okay. In Minnesota. And how about
Rothsay.
I'm sorry?
Rothsay, Rothsay.
Thank you.
Up on the Red River Valley.
Oh, up north then.
In Minnesota.
Kind of near...
On the western border.
Near Fargo, North Dakota? A
Yes.
little bit? Okay.
Not too far from Fargo.
Right. Okay. And how about your mom and dad? What did they do back in that time?
They were farmers.
Okay.
I came from a large family. I was number 8 of 10.
Wow.
We moved to Iowa when I was in the 4th grade.
Okay. What brought your family to Iowa?
Mother couldn't stand the wind blowing on the Red River Valley. Couldn't stand it anymore. They moved back to Iowa.
Moving south, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Did any other family members serve in the military?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
One of my older brothers. There were 6 boys and 4 girls. Joe, my older, 10 years older than I am, served in the Navy. And my little brother, 1.5 years younger than I am, served in the Air Force.
Oh.
But he didn't get into the combat or anything because he was later. Okay. I graduated from high school when I was 16. So had to wait a year to be drafted to the military. turned 18 on July 9th in the 53. Got the questionnaire the next day. Was drafted in October of 53.
Okay.
Was sent to Camp Fannin, Texas for my basic training in October. That was very limited. I should say that no two wars are alike, and it was hard to prepare us for what was to follow. I was quite active in music in high school, so in the basic training they had a choir director that took tours to Europe, so he was trying to save himself from going to combat, so we organized a glee club in Camp Fannin, Texas. And we moved around to small towns and different places on bond selling tour. Had the privilege of meeting, I was going to tell you offhand. Now it slipped my mind just like that.
Okay, well, if you think of it. So you toured, you said on a
Texas.
Okay, and you toured.
Camp Fannin is close to Dallas.
Okay. And this was on a bond?
What's that comedian is always such a card? I'm sorry, I just slipped my mind just like that.
Hope, maybe? No.
Maybe it'll come to me.
Okay.
At any rate, when finished with our basic training, they held the glee club out. They were going to go on more tours. So we didn't ship out with our division. And they went to South Pacific. And I was very glad that I got to stay at the Camp Fannin, Texas for about 2 weeks. But we didn't have anything to do, so they put us on KP every day. I tell them I was KP King. I had 16 weeks of basic training, served 17 days of KP. At the end of that tour, they decided they didn't need a glee club, so they shipped us out with the other units. So I went with the other division. We went to England, and we were stationed on the moors as replacement troops, waiting for the D-Day to take place. We were there then from March until June. I went in on D+10, joined the 9th Division. The 9th Division was an experienced combat division. They had been through Italy and Sicily. They pulled them to England to train for the Normandy campaign. They went in on D+5 when they had the beach established. I joined them on D+10. As a replacement. Normandy is just like the New England states in the United States. Suppose they were farmers in that day were trained the same as in England. There are small fields with rock hedgerows as the field dividers. Horse and buggies didn't take too much room and the roads were very narrow. Fields were very small. And the 9th Division was brought in to cut off the Cherbourg Peninsula, give them a good seaport at Cherbourg. They removed actually about 1 or 2 fields a day. Very small movement. Combat was close at hand. You could only see about 1 or 2 fields in front of you. In the morning that I woke up after they delivered me to the outfit at the dark at night. Got up and got breakfast before daylight. And the platoon sergeant commander said, "We lost the BAR man yesterday. You become the assistant BAR man." He says, "Give me your M1, take this carbine." They loaded me down with all the ammunition for the BAR. I criticized the Army for not giving you adequate preparation, but I don't think they knew what was going to happen either. They tried to prepare you the best they could, but they never gave you very much information as to what's going to happen. And I learned one thing in basic training. In the Army, you don't ask why, you just do it. And that's the way it was with combat. They told you, when they hollered for the BAR, you moved forward. So we stayed pretty close to the very front of the lines in order to be on call. The 9th Division did an adequate job. They were very good. They were experienced combat troops from Sicily and Salerno and Sicily. So they didn't lose a lot of men coming in on D+5. That was the reason for coming in late. They didn't want to lose all the experienced combat people, troops. On the 10th day, we cut off the peninsula, headed north instead of south to clear out the pillboxes on the coast. And it was a different type of operation. They lined the whole company up shoulder to shoulder. Said when we say fire, just hope you're aiming at that little black box up there on the hill. And so it was just a company in mass charging the pillbox. And the Germans are very intelligent people. They knew that when they were licked, they gave up in a hurry. They didn't want to stick around to the end like the Japanese. So they surrendered about the time we were halfway up the hill. And carrying the ammunition and the like, I was kind of slow. And I was clear on the far end of the line. When they surrendered, everybody took off and running up there, and I was a little bit slow, can't move that fast. I found that there was only 2 of us left about halfway up the hill, and everybody else was gone. And just like that, the Germans opened up on us from the pillbox next down the road. So we hit the dirt, and the first time they opened up, they nicked me in the leg. So I tried to run down the hill and I couldn't walk. So I rolled down to the bomb crater at the bottom of the hill, got cover. The other guy came over to see how bad I was hit, and they opened up on him, and he got hit in the wrist. So that was the end of my combat experience. From there, they shipped me back to England. Turned out that I had a nerve injury, peripheral nerve injury in the leg, caused me to have a drop foot. I couldn't walk. So I went back to England from the field hospitals on the base. Field hospitals were located along the shoreline of Normandy. And we got to the hospital of different, they had Quonset huts set up in unit to make a hospital in England. They unloaded us and put us in different wards according to the injury that we had. And of course, the important thing was where are you from, where are you from? So the nurse was from Blue Earth, Minnesota. And she said, where are you from? Burt, Iowa, which is just across the border in Iowa, northern Iowa. And she says, we have a doctor here from Burt. And so turned out that he was our family doctor's son. He did his training at the University of Iowa and was doing his internship in the Army. So he came down to see me that night, and being a captain, he could write to his wife without his letters being censored. We were under very strict censorship. If we even mentioned a town, it was cut out of our letters. So I couldn't tell the folks anything about my injury. But he could. He wrote to his wife, who was staying with his folks in Burt, told her how bad I was injured and that I was in the hospital in England and so on. And she got the letter, went up on a Monday morning, and Mother was hanging clothes out on the line. And she explained everything to Mother, where I was and so on and so forth. 6 weeks later, they got a telegram from the War Department that I'd been injured. So that was a very important part of my life from that standpoint. I spent 6 months in England. It was kind of strange. They came around every morning and stuck needles into your toes to see if they wiggled. Excuse me. Okay.
Did you ever, like, kick them?
That's what happened. My toe wiggled when they stuck the toe in. He says, "You stay in." They were filling out a plane load for Detroit of injuries like that. If the nerve had been cut, I would have had to gone back to Detroit to have a serious operation. But since it was just nicked, it was injured enough so it caused me a drop foot. So they said, "You're staying." Took 6 weeks, 6 months to heal. And that put it right down to the operation, what do they call it, the Battle of the Bulge. And they needed troops then to replace the casualties. The Battle of the Bulge. We were ready to go back anyway, but they had an emergency call. They pulled the Catholic boys out of Mass at Christmas Eve, told you to pack, get ready to leave. In about 2 hours, we were on trucks rolling around the English countryside looking for an airport. Turned out it was so foggy the birds had to walk. The plane that was supposed to come in and get us never did get there. So we sat there on a lonely airfield all day Christmas Day with our field rations. In dark, they came in, loaded us up on trucks, and took us back to the camp. Got back there after the mess hall had closed, and all we had for Christmas dinner was Vienna sausage. The next day, we loaded up again, flew back across the English Channel, and then you were always allowed to join your old outfit. So I went back to the 9th Division again at night. 9th Division was given the job of cutting off the supply line for the Germans. They had them pretty well controlled by that time. They took me back to the outfit in a weasel. They had jeeps all covered with cat tracks, painted white so that they didn't show in the snow.
Did you call that a weasel?
What do they call looked like a weasel.
Okay.
All painted white with cat tracks so that they didn't show up.
Okay.
They brought the supplies and everything up at night. They said, "You shack up with these 4 guys." Here they had a big foxhole dug into the ground, covered with trees, snow. Snow was about 2 foot deep. You crawled out of the foxhole at night, put on a sheet with a hood so that you didn't show running around, run patrols. The Germans would come out to the edge of the woods down in the valley, shoot flares into the ground or into the air to check on our movement and the like, so that when you heard a flare go up, while you squatted down, ducked your face, sat as still as possible so that you didn't get counted. From there, it was pretty much come and go. We had a commander that only had 2 stars in our division, and he was looking for more, so he volunteered us to be the first outfit to cross the Rhine River. If we had been necessary for us to cross the Rhine River in a landing, so to speak, I wouldn't be here today, because the Rhine River has mountainous land on the east side, and it turns out flat on the west. If you've taken a tour of Germany, you will see that. This so happens that they attached the 5th Cavalry Division to the 9th Division to give us some tank support. And the 5th Cavalry, for some miraculous operation, captured the Remagen Bridge at noon one day. We were headed marching in a column of 2s on one on each side of the road, headed for Bonn. We were going to take Bonn the next day. They loaded trucks, came up with trucks, pulled up between us, loaded us up, took us back to the Remagen Bridge. And we had a whole division of the 9th Division on the east side of the Rhine River by noon the next day. So I crossed the Rhine River at 10:30 the next morning on the bridge, which saved my life, I'm sure. From there, it was pretty much easy going because of the fact that Hitler had spent his best troops to protect the bridgehead in that the area in Normandy and the like. So it was travel through the forest in the spring, Hurtgen Forest. After we got through that,
What was the name of that forest again?
Hurtgen. I don't know how you spell it, but
Okay. No. Thank you.
it's in northern Germany. There was one other major battle. Our company jumped off, but before daylight one morning crossed through the Remagen. The French had a anti-tank line that they put on the border. We crossed over that and captured around a farmer's house there sitting out on the hill, and they had a German general and several high officers in his troops, and we caught them in the napping, captured them. The only problem was that when we went to take the prisoners back, we found out we were surrounded. So we sat there all day in the farmhouse. We did have radio contact, but they had to be very careful with that. But we couldn't move forward, and we couldn't do anything else. We brought out a tank out of the woods down in the valley. So we just lined up along the logs that were laying there in the woods. The sergeant said, "Don't shoot until we can see the white of their eyes." But they never did fire at us. They backed off, went back in the woods. And just about dusk, the U.S. troops broke through the line and rescued us. I noticed in the history book, after I got home, that the French had awarded the French Croix de Guerre to the 60th Regiment for that operation. But I was already homeward, so I didn't get that. That was one of the touchy instruments for a while. From there on, it was touch and go. We had the tank support, so there was very little opposition, I should say. So one day you would ride the tanks, go as fast as you could, just scaring out the Germans. The next day you'd walk and cover the territory that you covered with the tanks, capturing any remaining soldiers that would be hiding out here and there that we missed. The third day you got back on the truck and catch up with the tanks. So it was a 3-day rotation. We got within 70 miles of Berlin at the Elbe River. We were about 30 miles on the other side of the Elbe River, and they told us, "Whoa, back up." President Roosevelt signed an agreement with Stalin that we would stop at the Elbe River and let the Germans take Berlin. No, not the Germans, the Russians take the Berlin. So we backed off to the Elbe River, sat there for about 2 weeks, waiting for the Germans to finally, I keep saying Germans, the Russians to catch up to us. So one of the really Army snafus, I should say, they brought up shoe polish so we could polish our combat boots and march in a parade to the Russian soldiers so that we could demonstrate that we had full force, something like that. I don't know what the purpose was. That was the end of our combat as far as in the combat in the 9th Division is concerned. We sat there in northern Germany for a time until they decided where we were going for the Army of Occupation. They shifted us down to southern Germany along the Blue Danube. It wasn't too long after that they gave special leave to different, how high you ranked in the division in the company. You get the week's pass to go to Switzerland. When my turn came, they said, "Oh, you can't go. You're scheduled for redeployment. You're sent home. You've got 65 points. You're ready to leave the company. You could leave any day." So I didn't get to go to Switzerland. And then about 2 weeks later, I left the company and they sent us to France, southern France. They had a tent city set up there for the redeployment back to the States. And just my luck, the Siemens went on strike. And we sat there till December. And it wasn't until the middle of December that they finally settled the strike. And we headed home. That was in late December, and the North Atlantic is very rough. And we had rough seas, and we were on this one troop ship all alone out in the Atlantic. And my bunk was about the third tier from the front of the bow. And it seemed like the ship went up and just sit there and rocked on each wave. And it would clear up out of the water on the front end and then come down and boom, it hit the rocks. Sit there for a few seconds and then it come back out of the water. And you can imagine that 90% of the GIs were seasick. It was quite a trip. We got back to the States then just before Christmas, loaded up on a troop train, landed Christmas Day in the shipyard of Chicago. The engine pulled off, the car left us parked in the switchyard. There we sat for Christmas dinner. No food on the train at all, except in the mess car that they left. Canned fish and
I'm sorry?
say it for me. Vienna sausages.
Recreation activities for today will be as follows. At 10:15 a.m.
That's that canned
on
meat.
Deck 3,
Yes.
You're talking about
That's what we had for our Christmas dinner.
2 years in a row, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Could write a book on
At 10:15 a.m. on
Leslie
Deck
Graham,
3,
Christmas in the
Remember
Army.
When, and at 1 p.m. on Sheeler 3 West, Wheel of Fortune.
Okay.
So about dark, they came out with a switch engine and took us out to the Camp Sherman just north of Chicago. Mess hall was cleaned up. No Christmas dinner there. So then they went and put us through the interviews, and deportment, that type of thing. And discharged me on the 27th of December and sent me home by bus to Algona. Being so young and not having very many experiences at all, I was just glad to get out. And I made a lot of mistakes. Should have applied for depreciation, or what do you call it, handicap. Should have kept my Army insurance. Lots of things I should have done that I didn't do when I was in a hurry to get home.
Leslie, how old were you when you came home?
I spent my 19th birthday in the hospital in England, wounded in action.
Okay. So you were just in your early 20s
Right.
when you came home.
I was still only 20 when I got discharged.
Wow.
Hold it, I gotta blow my nose again. Can't get a Kleenex. I need a Kleenex. This is just the old man. Nose runs all the time.
Yeah. You have told us some wonderful information. Would you like to talk a little bit about when you got home? Would you like to talk about when you got home, then did you do?
Yes. When we got home, then after the war was over, like that, there was just no employment or anything of that particular nature. So we were given 5220, they called it, 52 weeks of $20 a week for unemployment. You had to go to Algona to sign up for a job. But of course, not having any transportation, I wasn't able to take a job in Algona. So then that fall, I took advantage of the GI Bill of Rights, and I went to UNI, Iowa State Teachers College at that time, to go to college. So I graduated in 3 years, and there was still really no employment to speak of. And I finally got a job of teaching at a little town in southwest Iowa, town of Kirkman, Iowa. It was the first consolidated school district in the state of Iowa. It was a small school. There was only 31 students in high school. 3 men teachers taught everything. So, taught there 1 year, and of course, and they had to rotate. They had to have home ec, and I couldn't teach home ec. So I didn't get a job teaching then for a couple years. I stayed in Harlan, got a job as a bookkeeper in an implement store. And then When the rotation ran out back in Kirkman, I got the job back that I had before of coach and math. And by that time, I had married the first grade teacher.
That's nice.
And then we taught together there for our time. We stayed in Kirkman till they decided to consolidate with Irwin and Manila. So when you see the IKM on all the tournaments, that's the consolidated Irwin Kirkman school district. That means that we were married on June 10th, 51. We got a 64th wedding anniversary coming up here in a few weeks.
Oh, congratulations. Wow. That's impressive. Leslie, do you have, did you and she then have a family?
Yes, we have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. Melody is the oldest. She graduated from Iowa State with 2 degrees. She's married and has 2 grandchildren. Lucas, Texas, just north of Dallas. Paula, our second girl, is not married. She graduated from UNI. She works for Cersei in Marshalltown as the daycare for handicapped people, mentally retarded. They don't call them that anymore. Brent, our youngest boy, graduated from Coe College. He's married. His wife has a doctor's degree now in physical therapy. He works for Mid-America Light and Power in Des Moines, and she's a physical therapist at the Yonkers Rehab. They have 2 children, boy and a girl. So that's the extent of our family.
So you will have quite a family gathering for the anniversary, probably, huh?
Yes.
That will be so nice. Can you tell me, Leslie, as you think of your veteran experience, how did that really affect your whole life? Did it, or not so much, or?
Changed it completely. It's hard telling what I would have done had I not gone into the Army. My dad was a blacksmith. When they moved back to Iowa, it was during the Depression. And they lost the farm. They didn't, of course they never had it, they just were renting from my uncle. And when we moved to town, Dad went to work in the blacksmith shop for a well-known blacksmith there. So he learned the trade. When the old man died, my dad took over the rest of the blacksmith shop. And when I graduated from high school, there was no jobs or anything. and Dad needed help, so I stayed home a year, worked in the blacksmith shop for a year until I was drafted. Then when I was drafted, Dad couldn't run the shop alone, so he closed it up, took the job as custodian at the schools. So he that was a one building schoolhouse. And he took that until retirement. Yes, so I imagine, I'm sure I would not have been a good blacksmith. I was a skinny little kid. I weighed 145 pounds when I went in the Army.
But then went on to become a coach and a math teacher.
Yes.
What did you coach at your school?
Oh, in a small school, everybody had to go out for sports. That was the physical training.
Oh, okay.
So I had boys and girls basketball and baseball. And I learned my lesson that I was not cut out to be a coach. We moved from Kirkman to Manson in '54, but I did coach the girls' basketball. We left there. My wife had a 2-year from Simpson College, and she went to summer schools every summer to work her BA. So I went to summer school also, and it worked out that she got her BA in '56, and I got my master's degree in '57. And then we started taking institutes in the summertime. So I was awarded a Shell Fellowship at Stanford University in the summer of '58. Shell Oil Company recognized the need for teachers, and they started the special institutes, one at Stanford University for 50 teachers west of the Mississippi, and another one at Columbia University for 50 teachers east of the university. They took 2 from each state. So I was lucky to go to Stanford, and we left the day before, or day after school was out in the spring, and started traveling all through the West. And actually we traveled in some part of every state west of the Mississippi. By the time we got home, we drove 12,500 miles that summer. Got back the day before school started.
And they think teachers don't work in the summer.
No, we traveled. Well, it was a 10-week institute, so
Right.
Didn't give us too much time at the end to get back.
That's quite an honor that you were selected to do that.
I felt that way, as to be chosen as. The other one was a chemistry teacher from Keokuk.
Oh, okay.
We were the 2 from Iowa that spent the weekend on. Then we kept on going to summer schools like that. They call me a professional student. I had 2 summers at Iowa State one summer at the University of Nevada, Reno, another summer at the University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa. So I actually have 51 semester hours beyond my master's degree.
That is very impressive. You must like to learn.
Yes.
Right. Leslie, we've only got about 5 minutes left. Is there anything else you would like to add about any part of your life or your veterans experience? Anything you'd like to close the interview with?
I still can't think of that comedian's name.
It wasn't Bob Hope. No.
Went to Dallas for a bond sending tour.
Right.
He took the card. I can't think of that name. I can see him just plain as day.
Well, when you think of it, you can drop me a note. You'll think of it later, probably. Well, you have just done a fabulous job of telling us your experiences. Have you shared those with your grandchildren? Some?
Well, no. It's been a strange situation. The kids never wanted me to talk about the war. So I never did. And until actually the VFW in Marshalltown took it upon themselves to get my medals. And they wrote and got all my medals and presented them to me in 60 years after I had got them. And that kind of impressed my grandson. He had to write a project to describe somebody, and he did me. And his grandpa was a hero. And listed all of my medals. And from that point on, people kind of broke out in the open, and they wanted to discuss the war. So it's been a little easier for me to talk about it.
Well,
I'll just give you a history lesson.
Well, yes, I'm ready to go learn more. Okay. I guess just, is there anything else that you would like to add that we have not covered in the interview? We've got about 2 minutes.
I don't think so. I think we've pretty well covered the...
All right.
We're down to a pretty small family now. I'm the only boy left, and there's 2 girls left.
Out of the 10.
Out of the 10.
Right? Okay.
So there's only 3 of us left.
Sure. Well, yours is a fascinating story. Thank you so much. This will conclude the Veterans History Project interview with Leslie Graham. Thank you again.